This topic is going to be super broad. It is using Excel for BI, business intelligence, or business analytics. I think there's just a lot of different feelings on that. So I'm actually going to let anyone who wants to jump in on that, and then I'll follow up. So, Rick, you're a business intelligence guy. I said I'll let anyone, but I'm just going to ask you, Rick. What do you think about using Excel for business intelligence? Shortfalls, stories.
Sure.
What's your first feeling?
My first, and I've talked about this quite a bit on the show, is that if you want to, we'll talk about how adoption of BI systems, particularly enterprise systems, is dismal. And in my opinion, they tend to be dismal because IT wants as much control as they could possibly have, not only of the data sets, but also of anything that is developed. They want to kind of create, and everything's got to go through them. And what I have found is as a result of doing that, they make the average analyst out in the business their enemy. And that average analyst out there in the business is the person who actually controls the relationship with the executive, right? So they're actually, because they're hoarding data, because they're hoarding that information, because IT is doing that, they actually create their own demise within a BI deployment. And I think the role of Excel is, first off, IT has to recognize that they need to, their job is to empower the analyst as much as possible, and those analysts are in Excel. So to the extent you can roll out either an ad hoc tool or anything that gets information into Excel, whether that's an Excel add-in, any analysis for Office sort of add-ins, or anything that gets data to the analyst better, quicker, faster, access to more data, better security, or anything that's 50% better than they're doing today, is the way to help ensure that you're going to maximize your investment in BI. So for me, a rolling out Excel or any sort of kind of ad hoc tool is the very first thing I do, the very first thing I recommend.
Cool.
What do you think about that, Miko?
I'm agreeing with you 100%. Did you see my subtitle, my tagline?
Nice.
Oh!
Welcome to the show, Miko.
Guys, my background is computer engineering. I love IT. I had to depart. It's like a marriage that just, I don't understand it. I don't know if it's job security. I don't know if there is something, IT has become SHIT in a lot of organizations, right? Because of hoarding. Hopefully you blanked that out. Sorry about that. Jordan did like this.
No, that's fine. We're taking the show in new directions.
Sorry.
We're taking the show in new directions. This is all part of the new Excel
No,
TV.
it's not part of it. But
We're all over 25.
No, I have to put that because that phrase that I just said is a common discussion that I have with CIOs. I'm bringing it straight from the executive level, right? So, it's become a bad word, and I know you have seen this, Rick, Jordan, and Oz. A lot of IT teams have to rebrand themselves. Have you guys seen that? It's been happening rampantly. A lot of IT teams, one of the things that I've seen around the world, from Australia to London, I'm going to tell you this, and don't laugh. We have people that come to our class, right? And when they come to our class, especially developers, you know what class is, right? You put 30 people in a class, half of them or less are going to really click. So we always have what I call the wonders, right? So those are the 2% whose minds just switch and they go, holy crap, I don't want to be IT anymore. And you come back, and I've been around the world from Australia to Europe to South Africa, and you know where they end up working? They end up going straight from IT to work for the CFO. Directly for the CFO. So when we find them, I go, what are you doing now? Oh, I'm good. I do all the CFO reports. And I go, what happened? I simply gave him what he wanted. I don't know. Yeah, so Rick, I'm 100% on board. I don't know what the mentality is with IT. I can tell you this. Do you know I've prayed for IT?
You prayed?
Oh, man.
I have a, so don't laugh at this. You guys know when they go to funerals, we say, beloved, we're gathered here together. I've sat in IT teams and I said it. I said, look, the reason I'm saying this at the beginning of this, before we start, is that if we don't fix this, we're going to get shot. So definitely I agree with Rick. And I think that the meshing, I don't know if you guys saw on CIO.com, they started saying that they think that the CFO is going to become the CIO again. This sounds really bad, but I actually think that that might help a lot, because I don't know where the balance comes in. There's either over the top technical, I'm going to hoard the data, or there's over the top super user business where I'm going to take the data and I'm going to keep it to myself. Where's the middle ground?
Wow.
Right.
Wow.
So it's interesting you say that, because when I started doing what I was doing, I probably would have said I was an IT professional. Not a whole lot has changed, except that I will never say that. And it's funny because I don't know if I've met a business intelligence person who's like, oh, I love IT. I have a great partnership in this organization with IT. No one, because here's the thing, because I've just noticed this. There's always this constant battle now between everyone in IT, and even IT people are like, yeah, sorry. Like it's almost like they've accepted how terrible it's become, and they'll complain about IT. I mean, I know this is sort of jumping in a slightly different direction, but what sort of happened to IT that made, and I know that something happened. That's why ad hoc spreadsheets on your desk are taking off, because people don't trust IT anymore. What does everyone think happened?
I can tell you. I was going to say. No, I was just going to give you one word answer, and then I'll pitch it over to Oz. I think IT stopped evolving. I think people learn one tool and they never do anything else. That's my opinion.
Wow. I don't know. I'm back into this, from last episode of envisioning this romantic post-apocalyptic world where I was one guy in a cube solving all these problems because IT couldn't move fast enough. I couldn't get the ad hoc reports I wanted or whatever. And I had a business analyst who could give me data dumps. There was another guy who taught me how to write half-assed queries in the database, and then somebody else would wonder how I got permissions to do it. But I was the guy with the machete out in the post-apocalyptic rubble, going and getting shit, going and getting more canned food for the 3 people who were about to starve to death. And IT, they did what they were doing, and I did what I had to do in Excel. And I keep thinking about the people that got up and left my session when I said I don't know SQL, I don't know enterprise solutions, even though I was in an enterprise for 7 years. Yeah, but I dealt with the person who calls up and said, "You people did it again." Well, her problem is too small for IT. Oz had to handle it. Oz had to go get his machete and go back out into the rubble and fix this stuff. Yeah. And that's where it was exciting to have access to Excel and to at least be able to get a data dump. And in the book I'm writing now, I'm saying if you can work with a data dump, you got some power. If you got to wait for somebody to make you a report, Lord.
Yeah, you're in trouble.
You need somebody to pray for you, because what happens there is you get a report. Say if you are looking at trying to figure out what happened to some orders that never showed up for the customers, and then you get a report. There's no transparency there, and you don't know what's going on, what's a refund or what was in it. But if you can get the data dump and massage that sucker, now you are ready to be a runner in the post-apocalyptic world called enterprise data.
Here's the thing, and so I agree with you. And here's the thing in my mind. If you look at kind of business intelligence and how IT has needed to hoard the data, and I think to some extent they do that because, first off, they don't know any better, right? And number two, they don't see a risk with doing that, right? And here's where I see things, as I've seen things evolve over the last few years, I've seen more and more operations groups, or people out in operations, go the subscription model.
Yeah.
If they can go and they can work something into their operations budgets, and do that for a small dollar amount per month, they work that into their budget, then they can completely get around IT, fund it themselves. And at that point, you're really enabling your Excel analyst. So, I mean, there's a real risk here for IT, not only from the subscription model, but from open source and from other things that, there is a risk now. There is a way around them.
Well, I have a question for you guys, all of you. What's more dangerous, an IT person with all the data with no business knowledge, or a business person with all the data with no IT knowledge?
Oh man, I would say the IT without the business knowledge.
Yeah, IT without the business knowledge. I would say.
Because that's what I say. Because my first hard task that I had to do, my 3 days of filtering and sorting and manually coloring cells, but it was right because I understood the business. Yeah. And it took 3 days. Now it might take me 2 hours, but back then, 3 days of hard, grueling work.
So do you guys want to hear something interesting? Some of the top companies in the world that have the best BI managers, they're all former from financial departments. Mm-hmm. And the cutest part is that we don't find that out until way after. I don't want to call company names, but some of the most progressive IT departments in the world, the head of the BI is a previous finance manager. It's a trend that we're seeing over and over again. And I
think this makes sense.
Yeah, and I only say that, and it pisses people off, so I don't want to piss anybody off, but I always tell them, right, if I go in, because, we do a lot of trainings, right, so we dig into people's souls about what their paradigms. If I had to take a business person and give them some technical knowledge and send them off, I would do it any day over having to take an IT person and trying to teach them the business. I mean, there's 2 sets of bad habits there, and the IT to me taking them over to business is like trying to fit a watermelon through a quarter.
Right.
Man, you just taking me back, cause there's during that whole process of bringing on this new centralized big thing, and it come, okay, Oz, this is what you do. So now is this working? Well, that works, except for when these transactions don't go through the regular process. I need a way to integrate it in. Oh, okay, all these exceptions and stuff. And so how can you really centralize this stuff? And there's all this weird stuff that I understood and was able to put into my process. Because I guess, I think people process as tools, and a lot of times the people are wrong. And this is where my world is the small business, where the person who is in charge of the data doesn't realize that he or she is also the IT team, and they are the doer.
Yes,
tell me what to do. Tell me what button to push, and say, no, this is not going to work.
Yeah, well, I'm going to tell you guys a story really quickly. So you guys know that a couple years ago, remember that shift to send all your reporting offshore? You guys remember when it was everything offshore was better, bigger, faster? Do you guys also remember how recently everybody started running back onshore with all their pants on?
Yeah.
Right? Right. I mean, I don't want to, I'm trying to not offend anybody here, but, we kind of learned that there's certain things you can't outsource, right? There's certain things that no matter how many humans, like in other words, there's a saying someone told me, and I remember they said, you can't have 9, the thing is that you can't apply 9 women to make a baby come. It just takes 9 months, right? And so I often find that in IT departments, there's this mentality that is similar, even though it's internal to the companies, and it fails every time. So I just think that there has to be a middle ground, but I honestly think that if IT was more comprised of people that came from a business background who decided to be super users, I think there'd be a lot more success. That's my humble opinion. Right. And I'm a computer engineer, so I'm not knocking a technical degree here, don't get me wrong. Right. But I have to admit that I ran for the hills a long time ago, and I don't regret it. Let me put that in my tagline, I ran for the hills.
like it.
So I'm curious, more directly to Excel, what is Excel's role because one thing that was exciting about the past BAC conference was at least one conversation was about we focused on SQL so much, but Excel is always there, but we don't know Excel users and what they need. So as I described to you, you know, I play bass, right? And it sounds like you, because you know Excel, you know BI, you know Enterprise, you're like the bassist the drummer who also plays bass. Yeah. So what can you say about Excel's role in an enterprise and its relationship with IT, you know, like a marriage that could work in a rhythm section?
So I'm going to tell you something that's hopefully funny, then I'll answer you. Do you guys know that we have over, what, 150, 200 BI tools on the market? Do you know what's the first data source every single one of them start with? Every single one of them, whether it's $1 million tool, a $300 million tool, the first button on every tool is Connect Excel. And that, I always tell you, I said that by itself should tell you something very well, right? So to answer your question, Oz, I think the happy marriage with Excel is for people to understand. And I hate to say rules, I think people have to understand etiquette, right? So let's say, for instance, when you're on social media, there's certain things you do and do not do. I think that IT right now, there's like a push like this, there's don't do it, don't do it. It's not realistic. That's the first problem. So if we get away from the don't do it, and instead say, look, here are some best practices around how we need to use this. If you need to collaborate with people, here are some things that need to happen, right? Here's what needs to be done. I think if there's some guidelines, there'll be a better marriage. But right now, IT sees it as Armageddon. It's the end of BI as we know it, and people are just pushing back, and it's not working. All they're doing is pushing, to Rick's point, when IT says no, you know what I do? I pull out my credit card, I go online, I click subscribe, I get 30 days free, which is wonderful, and I let it keep rolling my card. And a matter of fact, let me tell you the truth. I don't care if I have to pay for it myself because it's $10 a month. For God's sake. It's not the point where I'm so desperate, I don't even go and ask my boss if he'll pay for it.
Well, yeah, that's an issue that comes up a lot.
I just want a solution. I mean, I tell people all the time, I say, look, anytime I walk into a BI department and I go to users and they tell me that they build their charts at home on their home computer in a solution they're paying for themselves, I know that failure, I can automatically smell like a 3 to 5% user adoption rate, and it stinks from the door. It stinks. So so I think that there has to be a mentality around, how can I help you where you are? How can I support what you're using? I'll take a look at what you're doing, and then I'll try to figure out how I can make your life easier. That's the approach. And what does that mean? If Jordan is my user, he has this complex spreadsheet. If I see an opportunity to automate a part of it, let me approach him. I'm not trying to take a sheet. I'm going, hey, Jordan, you're updating that every month, aren't you? Yeah, I am. How long is that taking? Well, Miko, I press it, I go to lunch, I come back, it's not done, so I do it every Friday night, ready for Monday. Well, what if I help you automate it, right? So what if I made your sheet easier? That's the conversation. It's not, I'm going to take your sheet and dump it, and now you're going to use this dashboard or this report. That's the conversation that needs to happen. So I just think the conversation has to change. Excel is not Armageddon.
So what about issues of accountability? And Oz is sitting in his cube doing his stuff in Excel, and we've empowered him to do it, but his analysis is wrong. His cells are missing, his formulas are missing cells that they should be capturing.
Yeah, but that's why you have data owners and data curators, right? Every business has to have a data champion. They have to. Someone has to do listen, again, I hate to keep bringing up the kids analogy, right? If you have a kid, you watch them every day going through the door. If the skirt's up a little bit, the pants is too long, or the shoelaces are untied, or you go, hey, come here, let me fix this. There has to be someone in every department that champions the data. It has to happen, right?
Yeah.
And that person has to be responsible, and the person cannot be in IT. I just keep saying this over and over again. They cannot be in IT.
Right. And I'm thinking like the customer facing people. Right. I like that. A data champion, specifically a data champion, the person who knows, okay, so a business rule changed. Oh, these 5 reports are tied to that business rule, and we got to tell Joe, who is the consultant who makes these reports, so that it doesn't fall in a hole somewhere.
Yeah, but the problem, Oz, is that a lot of people think that's synonymous with being a business analyst, and it's not.
That's data stewardship.
That's right. There's a difference, right? But the problem, Rick, is when you add stewardship, it automatically rings the IT bell. We're going in a circle, right?
Wow.
Yeah.
Because remember, there are a lot of people who think they're business analysts. They are, but they'll never admit it.
Right.
Yeah, and I would agree with you. In data stewardship, that should always be out in the business. The person out in the business should own anything that kind of comes into IT as far as setting up the business rules and all that sort of stuff, the data definitions, etc.